Our very last lecture. So here is our zero product rule. This is kind of what we've in some ways been building to all semester. This is just kind of a background on why this is what it is. First of all, what solutions are there to a times b equals 1? What numbers could a be and what numbers could b be? Well, obviously a could be 1 and b could be 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Is there anything else? Okay, a could be -1 and b could be -1. Are those the only answers? You might think so if you've got factoring on the brain, which you probably do, but think about fractions as well. Okay, a could be 1/2 and b could be 2. Now all of a sudden we've got a bazillion answers. We could have a is 5, b is 1/5, a is -1/10, b is -10, a is 17, b is 1/17. So you could list answers to this equation all day long. And they're all answers, but none of them have any parts of them in common. The only thing that they have in common is that they're all solutions to that equation. On the other hand, what solutions are there to a times b equals 0? Well, you could let a equal 1 and b equal 0. That'll work. What else? Well, you could a be anything and b be 0. Or if a is 0, b could be anything. A is 3, b is 0, a is -5, b is 0. If a is 0, b can be 10. Anything you want as long as one of them is 0. Now think for a minute. Is there any way to get 0 if both a and b are non-zero? Can I take two numbers that aren't 0, multiply them together, and get 0? I can add them, but can I multiply? Are there any ways to multiply two things together and does one of them have to be 0? It does. So what can you tell me about a and b? If a times b is 0, then one of those guys has to be 0. Either a is 0 or b is 0. In other words, if two things are multiplied and are equal to 0, one of them must be 0. Now the reason I do this is I really need to emphasize 0 is vital. We don't have a 1 product rule, we have a 0 product rule. You must have 0 on one side of the equation. If you don't have 0 on one side of the equation, all bets are off. You've got to get that 0. So we've got b squared plus 2b minus 80 equals 0. What does that mean? How on earth do I solve for b? If that b squared wasn't there, I would just add 80 to both sides. But with that b squared there, there's nowhere to go from here. So we're stuck. You can only solve quadratic equations by factoring. To be more specific, you can only solve nonlinear polynomial equations by factoring. So it doesn't even have to be quadratic. It could also be cubic or quartic or a higher power. So if we have b squared plus 2b minus 80, first of all, I make sure I have 0 on one side of the equation. Then, so that's my first step, get 0 on one side. The next step is to factor. B squared plus 2b minus 80. How does that factor? Well, let's say that we did guess and check. 80, that negative 80 tells me I would have 1 positive and 1 negative. The b squared tells me I'd have b and b in the parentheses for the first spots. Now my choices for the second spots would be all factors of 80. If I tried 8 and 10, that works because plus 10b minus 8b, that does give me the 2b in the middle. After I have it factored, notice I have b plus 10 times b minus 8, and it's equal to 0. I have two things multiplied together and equal to 0. Thing 1 is b plus 10. Thing 2 is b minus 8. So that means that one of those has to be 0. Either b plus 10 equals 0 or b minus 8 equals 0. So the steps for solving are first, get a 0 on one side. Second, factor. Third, set each factor equal to 0. So if b plus 10 is equal to 0, what is b? Subtract 10 from both sides, easy enough. On the other hand, if b plus 8 is equal to 0, I will add 8 to both sides. Therefore, b is either -10 or +8. Generally, this comes with a big kind of asterisk next to it. If you have a b squared equation, you'll kind of have two solutions. You might have a repeated solution, you might have imaginary solutions, but let's put it this way, you'll have at most two solutions. So my answers would be b equals -10 or b equals 8. How would you check? You'd plug it into the original equation. So I'd take -10, put it everywhere that the b is. Make sure you're doing your original equation. That would give you 100 minus 20 minus 80, which equals 0. So -10 is an answer. If I put in 8, then I'll have 64 plus 16, that's 80, minus 80, that also equals 0. So both of those are answers to my equation. In the next video, we will do examples.